Drugs and guns are techniques. They're amoral. Whether we bring good or bad out of them, whether we're moral or immoral, depends on us who use them. Drugs and guns cause an arms race. In the case of arms, the country that has the most efficient arms wins, so everybody else has to compete. But arms show us that there's a limit to effectiveness. That we can make an arms, like nuclear bombs, that are so effective we can't use them. In the case of drugs, it's the same. The country that was able to keep its troops alive in battle so that they only got killed by the enemy rather than disease won wars. So the military has played a huge part in the pharmaceutical industry, the creation of, and in healthcare technologies. But in the case of drugs in particular, there's one big difference between arms and drugs, which is the arms do get better the whole time. The drugs don't. We can bring weaker and weaker drugs on the market the whole time at much more expensive prices because our propaganda, which is also a technique, is getting better. We can persuade you that these drugs are better than the ones that were before and are safer. And the main propaganda technique we have is this idea that RCTs are the way, the truth, and the light. You need, like Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau and the Pope, to believe in evidence-based medicine rather than your own experience and evidence-based medicine. If our propaganda techniques get better and better the whole time, this can only diminish us. It can't enhance us. Now, in the United States 6 years ago, life expectancy has been falling since the early 80s, but 40% of over 45s were on 3 or more drugs. 40% of over 65s were on 5 or more drugs. We know that if you're on 3 or more drugs, you're not going to get the effectiveness you might get from each of them. Once you start going on more drugs, the effectiveness from each of them drops. We know that if we reduce the number of drugs you're on from 10 or so, or even 5, down towards 3 or less, we increase your life expectancy, we reduce the likelihood you're going to go into hospital, and we improve your quality of life. If we try to do that, if you're on 10 or 8 or 5 drugs, and we try to reduce the medication burden you're on, because this can cause problems, the situation we end up with is like this still from the Hurt Locker movie, which is that there's no guidelines and no RCTs that are ever going to tell any doctor how to do this. They're going to have to depend on their own experience if they're there. They're going to have to depend on walkie-talkie if they can communicate with other colleagues who've done the same thing. But above all, the person who's best placed to tell them which of the bombs to move first is likely to be you, because you'll have missed a drug or two here or there, you'll have felt the effects, you'll have known what's possible and what isn't. And in the case of a lot of the psychotropic drugs that could be in this mix, it can be terribly hard to get off them. Only you will know which is the one for you to go for first. So it needs a close relationship between you and me if we're going to have any chance to get out of this situation alive. Now,